Hello there, stamping friends. This is Sharon White, and I'm coming to you from my stamp room today to show you a tutorial on how I paint my poinsettias. I think I've mentioned a lot of times that I really love poinsettia stamps. I don't know what it is about them, but they're so fun to paint or color. And today I'm going to paint mine with my Gansai Tambi paint. So let's get started. As you can see, I have taped down a piece of bristle smooth cardstock onto a little cutting board. This is a little cutting board, Epicurean brand that I bought from Amazon some time ago. And by taping it down, it keeps my paper a little bit flatter and prevents it from warping quite as much as I'm working with water, because I use lots of water. I have stamped it and embossed it, but I haven't heat set it yet, so I'm going to do that quickly. I decided to stamp this image and emboss it with white embossing powder. I like to use gold as well, especially for a beautiful Christmas image like this one is. But today I'm doing white. I considered using clear embossing powder, but it doesn't let the image show up quite as well for me to see the lines to paint within, and the white embossing powder shows up a little bit better on my white cardstock. So I think that's done. Even heat setting it when the paper is taped down helps to keep it from warping, as it sometimes does when you emboss. Sorry about that. I meant to do that before I began. I'm just going to make sure that my tape is nice and flat against my paper. I love that when I'm finished and the image is dry, then I pull off the tape and it leaves that beautiful border. And this piece of paper is not an A2 size. It's a little bit bigger than that, and I'll probably end up cutting it down. But the first thing I typically do when I start painting one of these is start with my background. And to do that, I'm just going to paint a layer of water, clean water, around the image, and then I will drop paint into it, and then of course the water will move the paint. I think I've gotten all the little spots, and I'm going to stand up and just check the orientation of my image on the camera. Okay, it looks like it's all right. All right, so I started with my water, and I think I'm going to do a deep purple and blue background. And what I like to do is get my paint nice and wet, and then use my craft mat as a little palette. So I'm mixing 2 shades of blue now. I'm going to add purple. So it's a nice deep dark bluey purple. And I tend to always have too much ink or paint. So this time I'm just dropping the watercolor paint that's on my brush into my background where I've put water. And as you can see, the water carries it. The water that's on my cardstock carries it. I also like to use, if I'm using a very dark background, that means I will use lighter colors on my image because I like the contrast of it. And hopefully my paint won't seep underneath. And I have to apologize again right now because I will be drying this as I go along between each layer of colors, and I know that's a little bit tedious to have to watch or listen to on a video. My husband and I keep talking about trying to learn how to edit videos, but we haven't quite gotten there yet. All right, so I'm finished with that. Now I'm going to use my heat tool to dry it. Sometimes I use my paper towel to lift off a little of the excess, but I kind of want that dark, those dark spots. And of course, as I dry this, the whole, all the color will lighten up a little bit, and it won't be as saturated. I'm going to pull up a little of this, and a little of this, and a little of this with my paper towel. Paper towel often leaves a really cool little imprint as well. It just adds to the details. Now this is not as dark as I like it, but I think I'm going to leave it alone for now. By the way, the stamp that I'm using is from Stampendous. It's a current stamp. It's called Create a Pointsettia. And this is the stamp. And it came with, oh, I can't remember if it came with this or if this came with another poinsettia, but anyway, just know it's one of the fabulous Stampendous stamps, which a lot of you know that I just love. So look at that, my paper has barely moved as far as warping because it's taped down. It takes an extra minute, but no biggie. All right. The next thing I'm going to do is mix up a shade of green that I like. I'm going to start with a very dark green. And I hope that my paper is still centered under the camera. I'm adding a little bit of this mustard yellow to it. Get a little more water, and I'm going to just kind of fill in where these little pine needles are. I have to admit it's a little difficult to see even with the white embossing. I can't recall if I have already painted this particular poinsettia with the Gansai Tambi paints. All right, I think that's good for that for now. I'll probably deepen up the color afterwards. Just want to get the main bits of green. I'm going to extend these little pine needles out into the blue background. All right. And it doesn't matter to me that my water is not clean now for even doing different colors because it all kind of blends together. I'm going to dry that quickly. Feel free to fast forward. It's what I do. Whenever I watch a video, I typically fast forward through a lot of it. Soak up a little of this extra green, this little blob. By drying in between the colors, it helps them to not mix together and get muddy. It helps to keep your colors true. All right. I'm going to start on the poinsettia, And for that, I'm going to use my smaller brush. This is oh, I don't know. I just use brushes. I don't keep track of what the number is or size. Oh, it says number 4. It's a number 4. Okay, so for my poinsettia, I'm also going to start by adding water to one of the largest petals. And I think that I'm going to do this poinsettia in shades of pink. And my Gansai Tambis have a pretty dark pink, which I will get a lot of. And it also is a dark red, which has sort of pinkish tones. And I'm going to just drop the paint into my water and let it go. I'm going to rinse my brush and go to another petal, which is right here. This one's kind of underneath. Boy, it is hard to see this. I'll pick up some more of that darker paint. I try to find the leaves and petals that are shaded or shadowed and make them darker. And that is a little too much paint on this one. So actually what I often do is take a dry brush and I just let it absorb some of the paint to pull it off. And it leaves behind still a little bit of color. There. A little bit of this. While I'm drying that, I will get another one of these petals wet and mix up some more of this paint on the side. Drop some in. That one's very dark, but that's okay. Add a little darkness to this. And then water it down a little bit and just dry. And while it's drying, I'll start on another petal. I'm using enough water that my heat tool shouldn't impact the petal that I'm adding water to right now. I'm trying to focus the direction on these others. It's just so cool to watch the water carry the ink. And I also try to do the petals that are not right next to each other, so that the ink or paint doesn't run into the next one. I'm going to use my paper towel to absorb, oh, not my paper towel. I'm actually going to get this paintbrush, remove the water from it, and pull upward to remove some of this. I tend to be heavy-handed. I like how dark that one is. Not sure how that one got to be so dark. Let's do this one while the other one's drying. And I'm going to pull a little of this back. as well as that. I think it's looking good so far. I'm not sure if you can see my water, but it's already pretty dark, but that doesn't matter. Let's start another petal. Add more paint. A lot of water. All right. Just pull some of this. And I'm pulling the dark paint away from the tips of the petals because they're typically darker at the base where they're a little more shadowed. Now, because I don't want all my petals to be exactly the same color, I'm going to use this dark red again, but this time I'm going to add a little bit of orange and a red orange. So it'll change up the color a little bit so that everything doesn't look exactly the same. And I'm going to let that wet one, kind of in the center, dry by itself and work on this one right here. Put my water in carefully. I have my brush loaded. I think I'll add a little more orange, a little more water. I'm gonna wet this one. And I will probably pull some of that out. This, add a little blob of that. The sun is starting to shine. It's been so gloomy and rainy and dreary here. It's very depressing. Thankfully, spending time in my stamp room is very therapeutic. Doesn't matter to me what it's doing outside when I'm in here. Add some color behind there. I'm peering very carefully at my image to see where my petals are. I'm going to add a little of this to the base of that, and then here and here. I'll bring a little bit of the orangey paint into these other shades. And then I will use this paintbrush to pull the excess off. Or to bring it further. This is a little heavy. That's way too heavy. So let's pull some of that back up. Smooth that out a little bit. Add some water. this. Remove a little of this. And that. Pick up some color from here and extend this a little. All right, I'm going to dry that again. I'm finished with the red for the time being. I may go back in and fuss with the petals a little bit more. You can see a spot I missed that should have had the dark. Right here, that background. I'll just add a little bit now. And then pull it up. See some more. I don't know if you can see me using my paper towel to there. And while I'm at it, I'm going to get in a little bit closer to these little tiny areas around these berries that you probably can't even see. Fill in behind the scenes. Add some water and move it out. That's that for now. This berry got blue in it. I like how that's darker like that, so I'm going to add some here. That's a lot, but I'll use a larger brush, watery, just kind of soak some of it up. This just adds another layer of blue, which is really nice. The darker shadows. Whoops, that whole spot didn't get any at all. Like the corners be a little darker. I'll probably soak some of that up. I will use the brush. All right, I'm going to dry this again. Quite see what's in that corner, but it's going to become blue. All right, I will let that finish drying, and I'm going to make another shade of green for my holly leaves, I'm going to use the blue that was on my pad. In fact, I'm going to add a little more blue. This time I'm using sort of the olive green that's in here. And a little bit of water on my little bits of holly. And that's just a big blob. So, a little dry brush to pull some of it up. I think I'm going to add a little mustard to it. There's another bit of holly here. Some more mustard. Holly and holly and holly. It's so hard to see. I should have embossed this in black or gold or something, but too late now. All right, so I just dropped down water and I'm going to drop in my color. I'm peering at it to see if there's any more holly. I think I got all, no, here's one. All right, now I'm gonna check my camera again. Oops, not quite centered. There. All right, I'm going to use my dryish paintbrush to pull up some of this darker bit, just to create a little more shading on my holly leaves. This one's almost dry. Okay, I'm going to hit it with some air. All right, and I'm mixing up yet another shade of green. I started with some, a little black. And then I added some green. Then some bright yellow. All right, and I'm going to go over these. Little bits of green. deeper than I wanted, but okay. Now there are these little kind of U-shaped little bits, and I'm trying to think if they're mistletoe or something. But because I made my poinsettia red, I'm not going to do the little berries red, so I might do them a kind of a mustardy shade of yellow. I think that'll look pretty. And for that, and there are tiny berries and there are bigger berries. I just want the little ones first, and that's more green. I'm going to start again. Got too much green in my yellow paint. Let's start again. Might help if I went and got clean water. Let's just do straight mustard. I'm going to lift those right off. There we go. Pour some down here. Oh, I just realized I could look at the image to see where the little berries are. There's that. I think I missed 1, 2. No, I didn't. There's 2. I just decided I'm going to make all my berries the yellow, even the larger ones. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. There's this one here. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. These are just kind of in there somewhere. And then, oh, those are off the edge. This goes like this. Okay. Well, and I think I'll do the center of my poinsettia in this as well. A little brighter yellow. Just, whoops, there's the berries I missed right there. And then green, little green. Where did I say I just missed those? on here. Where did I, oh, right there. Duh, right in the middle. And I think I will use a little light blue, which, you know, isn't a true color of whatever these little thingies are, but it'll be pretty. That one, this one, this one. That one, that one. This is off the page. Is there one over here? Nope. I think that's it. All right, and then I'm going to add a touch of darker blue to the base of those. All right, I'm going to hit this with the heat gun again. Next comes two of my favorite things to do. But the whole panel has to be dry before I can do my next fun thing. I hope you're fast forwarding. This is the boring part. All right, I think that is pretty dry. One of the coolest effects on watercolor is just splattering it with water. And to do that, I am going to run in and change my water. Actually, no, I'm not. I have water right here. And in fact, I have my sprayer. So I'll just use my little sprayer. So this is just my little distress sprayer. And basically all I'm going to do is spritz drops of water on it. And then dry it again. Actually, I'm going to do this. And when those water droplets dry, they leave more interesting little marks. But I'm going to do this again. And then dry those completely. And my final step is to get some white paint on my brush. Add my little white spatters. I love spatters. I'm going to dry that. And then I'm going to add a few little black ones. I think that's dry. This I have to do carefully. Awesome. Quickly just mix up a little bit of darker green. I'm gonna make this a little darker. There's so much embossing that it's not really showing very well, but I want those little pine needles to be a little bit darker green. Okay, I'm going to hold this up and show it to you a little bit more closely. And there. See all that watercolory goodness. And now, these little bits of green pine needles aren't quite dry, but I think if I don't touch them, it won't matter. And now is the big reveal. Okay, here we go. 1, 2. Oh, I love that border. Look at that. 3, 4. Voila. So beautiful. I might just trim this down so that all the borders are even and make it into an odd-sized card because I hate to cut any of that off. So thank you for watching. Thank you for bearing with me with my continual heating and drying, but I appreciate you taking the time. I hope you are inspired to get your paints out and get busy. See you next time.